So each year a lot of people have been asking for English spoken videos about growing peppers. This year I'm gonna grow some bell peppers, the spicy kind. Obviously English is not my native tongue, I'm from Holland, so yeah, translating from Dutch to English is sometimes very complicated. So I received a package from Fire Chilies, aka Jim Duffy. So I ordered Antep Aci Dolmas because I want to grow the more spicy bell peppers. But in all transparency, I do have a company called NutriGrow Solutions and a YouTube channel called NutriGrow Solutions, which is a fertilizer company. I create fertilizers because I have a background in biotechnology, to be exact, a PhD in plant science. And we create different types of fertilizers, but one of them is called fruit fuel, which is specifically designed for fruit bearing plants, peppers, tomatoes. Sprouting seeds, it's gonna take some time. It can take upwards to 6 weeks. I do not recommend waiting 6 weeks, but it sometimes takes upwards to 6 weeks. But a lot of people that don't have the patience for it. Maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days, and if they don't see any movement, they're gonna freak out and they're gonna complain and all that stuff. But germinating seeds, it's gonna take time, especially pepper seeds, especially the hot ones, the super hots. They're gonna take a couple of weeks sometimes. So when you read on a website that some growers recommend using vinegar or hydrogen peroxide or an acid to sprouting their seeds, yeah, it probably will do something, but it also has the capability of sucking out the minerals from the little seeds. Yeah, acids and hydrogen peroxide has the capability of dissolving minerals. And guess what? There's just a little bit of macros and micros in the seeds. So when you're dissolving the minerals that's already in them, yeah, it's not really that efficient. I've already put about 20 seeds in a little jar with water and V-booster, and they already have soaked for about 16 hours. So I'm gonna go to the shops, shop for a little potting soil. So yeah, potting soil. I went for the universal potting soil because that's the easiest stuff to get, but also I don't like paying a lot of money for some simple potting soil. And the reason is it's only fertilized for the first 6 weeks, and that's also with the big brand companies. So let me be very clear about potting soil. There is a big difference between pieces and size and ingredients between one area and another. However, here in Europe, especially here in Europe, there are some rules and regulations around calling a product potting soil. It has to meet some rules and regulations. So therefore there is not really a big difference between one brand and another, besides the added value of a little bit of fertilizer. That little bit only worked for a couple of weeks. Peppers, but especially tomatoes, have the capability of depleting potting soil of its fertilizer within a couple of weeks. So buying very expensive potting soil doesn't have any benefits. The big difference is gonna be the fertilizer you're using. So the next thing is perlite or vermiculite in this stage in small containers. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. When you're using perlite or vermiculite, it's when they're transplanted to permanent containers, 20, 40, 60 liters. But when you're soaking plants in this stage, you're already doing things wrong. They're very small containers, they shouldn't be soaking wet, they should be moist, and that's it. Also, obviously, I'm using P6, so they're small containers, and I'm not using the double cut method. It's not that I don't believe in it, because obviously a lot of people are using it and it works, but I'm not gonna spend watering each individual plant with water. Don't have the time for it. So a little bit of calcium in the middle. It's just to bring the pH a little bit up. I know for a fact that a lot of potting soils have been stored for a long time, and sometimes they've been soaking in the rain and they turn a little bit acidic. So introducing a little bit of calcium can increase the pH and therefore create less problems. The Antep Aci Dolmas have been soaking for about 24 hours. I'm gonna place 2 seeds per container. It's just one as a backup. So in a couple of them I put an extra because I had a couple of extra seeds. Next thing is obvious. I need to cover it with a little bit of dirt. Otherwise it's gonna dry out and they're not gonna sprout. Also I put a little bit of calcium on top. It's not gonna hurt anything, but it's gonna increase the pH and the amount of calcium in the soil. I'm just using a little bit of water to keep it moist, but not soaking, because otherwise the seeds are gonna rot and I'd rather see them germinate.
1 week later.
It's been about a week, maybe even a week and a half, but the seeds started sprouting and we actually have small little seedlings. So obviously I use something called V-Booster, Fertilizer Booster V2 from Nutri Solutions, which is specifically designed for sprouting of seeds. So except for the little bit of Fertilizer Booster, V-Booster, I'm not using anything fancy or special. It's the cheapest potting soil. It's just a plain P6 container. There's nothing special about the way I'm growing. But I'm not saying that I'm not using specialized equipment or specialized techniques. So I'm using a Pro Box. These are very expensive propagators. Also I have a fan blowing in fresh air, removing old CO2 or the old air. I have a CO2 monitor, I have the humidifier, a fan. It's all automated with home assistant, so it's a very specialized way of growing. Also the humidity in the grow tent is about 85%. When you're germinating seeds, in order to get little sproutlings or little plants, the best thing you can do is keep it in a very humid area. These days we see a lot of people sprouting their seeds in an open, well-ventilated area with a low humidity, and it's actually causing a lot of problems because the leaves are getting stuck together with a little seed cap. They're pinched together because the seed cap is actually so dry it's not releasing the leaves. I've seen too many people using kits like these, which are designed for nails, fingernails, to remove the seed caps, just because they get stuck together, because they're sprouting it in a very dry area and all the shells get stuck on the leaves and they're trying to break them off, so they're damaging the leaves, they're damaging the plants. There's just no need for it. There's no need for this. Just germinate the seeds in a humid environment, 80 to 85%. So it actually says on the back that contains a little bit of fertilizer for upwards to 6 weeks. And that's maybe true with designer plants or plants that don't need a lot of fertilizer. But for peppers and tomatoes, it's gonna be depleted within a couple of weeks, especially when they're this tall. So I need to add fertilizer eventually. Because I own a company called Nutri Solutions and we create a product called Fruit Fuel, which is specifically designed for fruit-bearing plants, peppers, tomatoes and all that. I'm gonna use Fruit Fuel. I'm not gonna use a product from a different brand, because most other different brands, they make fertilizers that are specifically designed for cannabis. Fertilizers for peppers and tomatoes, you're not getting around of it. You need a lot of it. So you're better off introducing fertilizers a little bit earlier, just a little bit, to prevent any kind of problems, than waiting until the plants are suffering.
Yeah, we were all waiting.
Creating deficiencies and getting damaged leaves, and then starting to try to fix something, because it's going to take way longer to fix stuff than the little bit of cost, just the 5 to 10 cents per plant, to prevent any kind of problems and deficiencies. And it doesn't matter if you're using compost or compost tea or worm compost or something like that, or Fruit Fuel, which is designed for peppers and tomatoes and enhanced production. But you need something. So the next thing is you need enough light. I'm not going to say you need a lot of light, because it's the winter period and there's not enough to let plants grow and develop properly. So obviously plants will still develop, but small little seedlings need a lot of light, otherwise they're gonna stretch. So using grow lights in order to grow pepper plants and to let the pepper plants develop properly in the early stages is the better way of growing. Otherwise again, they're gonna stretch. Otherwise you have to wait until January, February until you can start growing pepper plants. Because for the people that think that the sunlight right now, it's just enough light to grow pepper plants, you're wrong. There's not enough light at all. So in order to measure the amount of light, you need a bar meter. I'm gonna place one right there with kitty cat. Yeah, and a par number of around 10 is way low. In order to develop those plants properly, it needs to be around 200-250 micromoles. So the sensor in the grow tent is around 200. It's still a little bit low, but it's at least around 200. So let me be very clear about light. You don't need around 500 to 1000 micromoles in order to grow peppers and tomatoes. I'm not growing cannabis. I'm growing peppers and tomatoes. And in order to grow them properly, you need around 200 to 250 micromoles for at least 16 hours a day in a grow tent to grow them properly. However, when you grow medicinals, the amount of micromoles and wattage is going to change dramatically because it's a completely different way of growing. So for now, it's just a waiting game. I need to wait until they're big enough that I can use some fertilizer, and that's going to be part 2 of this series.